Hey, what's going on, guys? Ben Brewster here, treadathletics.com, here with Coach Rob Blanc, one of our coaches here with Tread. Today we're going to be talking about the daddy hack drill. So this is something that we've been kind of mulling over in our head for quite some time now, is figuring out how to teach guys how to feel the glute and ride the hinge. Another way of saying that is, how do you move forward while staying back? How do you hold that tension and energy on the backside and be able to effectively rotate instead of extending and getting linear? And so it's a huge problem. It's one of the most common limiting factors when it comes to pitching mechanics, is teaching this hinge pattern, teaching how to use the backside and the lower half properly and the pelvis. And so something that we kind of observed and noticed, again, we're not necessarily hitting guys, but seeing how the very best hitters who also throw really hard, like Bryce Harper, Shohei Ohtani, both guys could throw upper 90s plus off the mound. Seeing how the similarities between how they load their pelvis and how they use the backside. There are differences, sure, but there's also a lot of similarities in terms of staying stacked, staying tall, staying back, being able to hold the ground, being able to build tension and coil in the back hip, and being able to ride that level pelvis forward. So there's a lot of similarities there. There's also a similarity in terms of being able to utilize the glute, and a lot of people don't understand what exactly that means, or they might have this concept of like, okay, hinge, like I'm supposed to get into my glute, but they've never felt it. And so we'll give them certain drills. We've come up with a number of them. The kettlebell hinge drill is a great one we've come across. The sliding hinge drill, I'll link both those videos in terms of this video. But occasionally those don't work and guys still don't exactly know what they're trying to feel, and it ends up creating a lot of overthinking where they're just really consciously like thinking internally about every single joint angle and trying to feel the glute, and they're just not getting it. And so we thought, hey, what if we can simplify this with a swing cue? What if we can just tell them to swing as hard as they can and see what their lower half does, and see if they actually even have the ability to wind into that back leg and be able to ride their pelvis forward and create that linear move that is ultimately going to allow them to rotate effectively. So that's what we've been experimenting with. We have seen really good preliminary results with some athletes. Again, these are going to be athletes that don't know how to hinge, so they're not necessarily throwing that hard, but 3, 4, 5 mile an hour increases pretty quickly once they start to get the feeling. So the idea here is, can you feel it one time? Can you just get that initial feeling in some context, and from there we can build it out, we can branch it out, and ultimately backwards chain it into more of a throwing specific pattern. So again, take this with a grain of salt. It's something to try. It's something that can really click for certain guys, and it's something that may not work for everybody, but it's just, again, a novel way of approaching how to train the lower half and how to feel that glute, how to feel that ground contact, and how to feel, hey, what does that forward move actually feel like? And so again, this is the daddy hack drill. Basically the steps that we've come up with so far, and again, this is kind of a work in progress, is feeling how can we individualize this for certain guys depending on if they're getting it, if they're not getting it. But the first step is say, hey, you're struggling to do this move. Like, have you ever hit a bomb before? Like, imagine you're taking absolute mammo hacks in batting practice. Lengthen out that stride, just give me a big long swing, maybe not a huge leg lift. The leg lift starts to complicate things, but just give me a huge swing feel like you're about to hit a bomb. So let them do a couple swings, then we'll say, hey, let's actually just stop at landing. Stop at landing, and let's kind of evaluate, see what you feel at that point. And so from there, you can see like, hey, are you feeling more tension in your quad on the front side? Are you feeling more tension on the back side, hamstrings, or glute? They might say, oh, I'm feeling like everything's right here is in my quad. And so from there, you can kind of tweak, like, hey, I want you to sit back a little bit more into your glute for on the next swing. And a lot of times just giving them the swing feel, they're going to be able to find it a lot quicker. And so you can get them in these positions and kind of position them and help them feel it, and they're going to say, oh, right there, I feel it. Great, swing hard, stop right there. And so you can start to get them this awareness of, how do I move forward while staying back? How do I move forward while staying back? And so it's creating a way to stay stacked over top of this level pelvis with this very firm ground contact point, riding the pelvis forward and not beginning to open up early. Obviously, we're going to exaggerate this for the sake of the drill. You're still going to ultimately land with some rotation of the hips, but for the sake of the drill, again, you're just focusing on that linear move and being able to hold tension on the backside. So that's step one. Can you even get into that position in the first place? Like you're about to just hit an absolute bomb, and then from there, what do you feel? You should be able to feel like there's weight and there's distribution on that posterior glute. So that's the first thing. If they get it, great, we can move on. If they don't get it and they're still like, I don't know what I'm feeling, like it's still all quad, I don't know what's happening, then we can actually regress it. So this is one that Rob came up with. Rob, why don't you talk us through the regression here?
Sure. So obviously with hitters, we talked a lot about like the top hand drill. Biggest thing here is obviously we're putting ourselves in more of a flipped up position. So as we create this linear move, we're really focused on staying stacked. So we're in a position where, hey, our glute's on, and we're in a position where, hey, I'm in flip up because of this one hand. Now obviously a caveat to this is for guys who are super uphill, or they're in a position where they, hey, kind of shoot the pelvis forward, something that you see like in an oral Hershiser drill, is you're in a position where, hey, we have to get into the glute and we have to ride this linear move to be able to activate the posterior chain and not be stuck in a position where we kind of extend forward.
Yeah, it doesn't give you any option to tip uphill or let the pelvis get out from underneath you or collapse in any direction or rush. Like, it forces you to actually stay stacked over the pelvis the entire time. So again, there's that top hand version. So once they can feel it with the swing, you can go to a top hand, and that's going to be the next step in terms of actually blending it to kind of a throwing feel. But again, if they're still not getting it, what you can do is you can slow it down a little bit, and we can take it in these kind of baby steps. So you can either do top hand or two hand, and you can basically say, hey, let's break this down. I want you to feel that glute as you begin to step further and further out, further and further out, further and further out, further and further out. And so that's a way to kind of regress the movement if they're not just able to ride the lower half from that initial swing feel. Is you can regress it, again, top hand, both hands, and have them step their way out while still keeping that stack, head over the pelvis, and feeling that tension build as they move forward. So that would be the regression. That would be the progression, which is top hand. And then from there, the final step would be, can we actually pick up a ball and put ourselves in an abbreviated arm action position and still keep that same feeling? So can we, again, Rob can demonstrate what that would look like. Can we still keep that same feeling, arm up, like we're about to hit a bomb, as we move forward? And again, that's moving forward while staying back, building tension through the glute. Again, by this point, they've been able to feel it, and you're just expanding their horizons, expanding the movement a little bit, and working your way slowly into more of a throwing specific pattern. Now, this is where things diverge a little bit, because a swing path, a swing plane is going to be much more uphill. You are going to ride the pelvis forward relatively level, but then the actual unloading is going to happen in more of an uphill plane, again, compared to more of a downhill plane when throwing. So it can be helpful at this point to think, hit an absolute like laser ground ball. So instead of thinking about a home run swing, it can be helpful to think about more of a downhill swing. Top hand, more of a downhill swing. Abbreviated arm action, ride it out, more of a downhill swing. And so they are similar movements in terms of the actual linear move portion, but that is, again, where they diverge. So cueing a little bit more of a downhill angle to the unload can be helpful. From there, you just have to sit back and evaluate, hey, is the player having a breakdown in this movement or not? And what we've seen is that some guys just get it. Like, you just give them the initial step one or step two, and they're able to immediately start to transfer it to their pull downs or whatever drill they're doing, and the throws just start to creep up and up and up, because now they're actually rotating. If you can ride that linear move forward while holding tension in the backside, now you actually have something to unload. If you don't know how to do that, if you're just kind of falling forward, then all you have as an option is to extend off the back leg and no rotation can happen. But if you actually understand the linear move, it gives you something to actually unload. The lead leg will block properly, the backside will rotate through, you'll stay closed as late as possible, unload late, you'll create better separation and better sequencing. So again, this is just a novel way to think about how to train the hinge, what the hell the glute load actually means, and get an athlete to actually be able to feel that in an isolated context and then branch it out into more of a throwing specific feel. Guys, give that a try. It may not work for everybody, but we've seen really promising results so far. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. We have another video on understanding internal rotation and external rotation dominant lower half mechanics. With this specific drill, it's actually really easy to see which style of loading the pelvis the athlete prefers, because all you have to do is tell them to swing hard, and you can kind of see the natural preference in terms of how they load into their backside. So this can actually be a really good diagnostic tool for a coach. Without having to cue anything, you can just see, hey, how do they load their pelvis and how do they load their back leg to produce maximal power? So go ahead and check out that video, and thanks for watching.